What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex. In this video, I want to talk about 10 interesting things that we may have learned from GTA 6 today. Now, I say it like that because, we still got a year, and some of the stuff is speculation, but some of it seems more confirmed than not. So, got 10 different things to talk about. Let's go through number one, which starts really with this background behind me. The water technically, I think, have an activity here, right? Which is something we'll talk about later on in this video. But one of the neat things I think this trailer does is, although it doesn't show, second-to-second gameplay walking around, we see these characters characters in general, do quite a few different things that you imagine you'll be able to do in the game. And so, of course, I'm a freak with water. This really, and I actually saw comments on my last video, this really got me freaking excited. Once I saw this, there's like 100 plus screenshots or something insane. This is unreal how freaking amazing. I mean, we've gotten like aerial views of the beaches and all sorts of like waterfront situations going on. Looks unreal. I see a lot of people saying like that's not what the water looks like, in Miami, but it's too clear, it looks too good, which is funny, but I don't care. This water needs to look this good. But then specifically this, number one, unreal how good this looks, and number two, I feel like it confirms that you're going to be able to go underwater and explore, which if you remember conversations from like a year or two ago, this was my dream. My dream was there was a rumor of like being able to surf and like a wave could hit you and you would fall underwater. I swear to God, if that's like a real thing, I'm going to lose my mind because that's so freaking awesome. Okay, number two, I mentioned gameplay not being in it, but interestingly enough, as people have spotted somewhat early on in the trailer, now ironically, they might have been making a little bit of a reference to leak culture, like leaking or whatever, because, you have Jason repairing the top of a house, right? I think his house, and, they talk about, repairing leaks. So people were wondering if that was any kind of, thing with just leak culture in general. But it's interesting because when he enters the house, and this is not just like a GTA or Rockstar thing, like the way the camera follows him very, very much implies, I think that's where gameplay is going to start, right? You have that cinematic cutscene, and then when the camera kind of like swoops in almost eye level, right? But it's behind him, and it kind of follows him into like he's doing an action. That's normally where a camera nowadays will cut and it'll transition into, okay, now you can move him inside the house. And I think people were pulling up like Red Dead 2 things where there's a scene in Red Dead 2, same thing, where it'll follow you into a building or something, and that's where that transition happens. It happens all the time. Like, again, I don't want to make it just a Rockstar thing, but interesting because there's not really gameplay, but that very much could have been a cutscene, and they cut it right before they give you control, over a controller and over that character. Okay, number three, outside of the actual, stuff that we saw, well, it is something you can visually see, you can wishlist this game. And that might not mean anything, but it is pretty cool just to see like the graphics on, systems and stuff. You can go, I specifically saw PlayStation, you can go and you can look at the box art and all that jazz. And, if there's anything you can kind of read into this, you don't want to go all the way because of course things could change, but, wishlisting it, all of the freaking stuff that we saw today, is it a sign that they're actually going to stick to May 26th next year? It's a long way away. A lot can happen, including unforeseen things, but wishlisting it and having it kind of all go live, which by the way, to wishlist this game so early, I feel like that's a good sign. So that's just, and it's also just an activity that you can do. If you feel like wishlisting it, you can do that. Okay, number four is kind of like an overall thing, as people have pointed out, and it's, if you literally watch it, you'd be able to see it. It's just maybe some people would have missed it. At the very end, it literally says that it was captured on a PS5, a base PS5. Right now, technically they could lie and it could be a PS5 Pro. I feel like they would be required by something out there, some god or a law or something, to disclose that it was a Pro versus not. And I feel like because they don't say that it was a Pro, it's not a Pro. Again, reasoning why this would be important. Yeah, it's a lot of cinematics, it's a lot of cutscenes, but like this is a base PS5 that they're capturing the stuff on. As I mentioned in my last video, you look at the last time, we got a trailer, which technically like 2 years ago, really like a year and a half or slightly less, but there's been quite a jump. in just a year and a half, and you still got a year left. And this was not even captured on like the most powerful thing it could be captured on, right? So to look ahead to next year, could it be even better than this? I think the answer could be yes. And then also, is this thing going to be pretty powerful on a PS5 Pro? I think the answer is also yes. But let's just take that now and go to number 5, because it involves PlayStation here. Is it PlayStation leaning? And what I mean by that is, like, do they have marketing? Now, I see a lot of people talking about that it just definitively proves that PlayStation has the marketing rights. Look, there's been a lot of rumors towards it. There was a pretty big rumor that PlayStation has, like, a massive marketing deal that's going to, I think, be revealed this summer. I think that was the rumor. I mean, I wouldn't really call this the summer, early May, like June is literally summer, but, so I don't know for sure. Maybe we'll get more GTA stuff, but, could PlayStation have some sort of marketing rights? I do think it's possible. I do think capturing it on PS5 would probably be the biggest sign to follow right now, right? I mean, you only have 2, technically 3 consoles you could have done it on: Series S, Series X, PS5. Guess maybe PS5 Pro, so maybe 4. You picked a PS5. I know there's like the kind of rip-off like PS5 console in the trailer. That's kind of interesting. I don't know if that really means anything to me. It's just, I think the biggest evidence, if you want to read into it, which, you don't have to if you don't want to, but I feel like, capturing it on PS5, there absolutely could be something there. I would not be shocked. I mean, history also tells us that they sometimes do this, right? There absolutely could be a marketing deal with PlayStation. Obviously, they're not going to reveal it yet, and I don't really know if they would need to. With still a year left to go. Okay, back to like the core game itself. Let's read the synopsis. We got a synopsis of the entire game today. Set in Vice City, Jason and Lucia have always known the deck is stacked against them, but when an easy score goes wrong, they find themselves on the darkest side of the sunniest place in America, in the middle of a conspiracy stretching across the state of Leonida, forced to rely on each other more than ever if they want to make it out alive. And I read that, sounds really cool. And then also, as I talked about in the last video, the trailer itself, like, it gives off, for as bright as it is, I mean, the synopsis kind of references that, right? For as bright and vibrant, and there's obviously going to be a large amount of comedy and, some exaggerations and maybe not some exaggerations of Florida culture and whatnot. I really think this game can have kind of a darker tone, and especially even with these two. I mean, they give off, they both seem very strong-willed. They seem like very strong personalities, and I mean, even just from the trailers, I get the sense they're hopefully going to be favorites in the GTA fandom and maybe just Rockstar, characters they've ever made, maybe gaming in general. Like they give off a lot of potential. I guess that's the word, is potential, right? So just kind of want to throw that in because it's a cool synopsis. The trailer obviously focused pretty heavily on kind of each of their backgrounds and when they reunite, right, when she's let out of jail and he's waiting, and it feels like, obviously, and they can go down some pretty dark roads with these two, and I'm very excited, as we talk about all these unbelievable things and them pushing graphics and what technology can do. Well, they also can write a pretty good story, and so there's going to be that element of it as well. Okay, number 8 is something kind of small. It's a smaller detail, but there's a couple images of Lucia with an earbud in her ear. Now, this wouldn't really be revolutionary, but it does probably give us a hint that you're going to be able to transport music, as it were. Again, not revolutionary. You could play music over, a headset. And I think other games have done it before, but that definitely makes sense. I mean, when you think about GTA, really around GTA 3 onward, right, it became known, or a big part of it was the radio and just how, amazing. And they really are. I mean, I've actually been playing through the older GTA 3, San Andreas, Vice City, Other Order, but whatever. And the radio stations freaking rock, right? So to be able to take that on the go with you would be pretty darn sweet. And again, smaller detail, but why have that, in a couple different pictures if you're not going to do something with it? I feel like that's a sign that, you'll be able to listen to stuff on the move. Okay, number 9, I'm actually going to take this from Ben at Videotech UK. Activities, which, as I mentioned earlier, with the swimming type thing, hunting, pool, boxing in a fight ring, diving, strip club, golf, watching TV, fishing, shopping in convenience stores, robbing convenience stores, and working out at the gym. Now, that is not confirmed. Again, this is a lot of this stuff, as I said, like, it's speculation. And you imagine, if we can hit 5 or 6 of these 10, I think that would be, it's technically like a failing grade, but it would be doing pretty good. I do think, like I said, with the swimming thing, a lot of these screenshots and just the way that the trailer is shot, it's a lot of almost like randomized clips, right? But of characters doing things. And you imagine, again, like they're cutscenes, but there are activities. Like that's actually going to be the next thing I was going to say. They are literally activities that characters are doing. And, as GTA has continued to expand, really 4 onwards, right, you can do a lot of different stuff. I imagine when you see Jason playing pool or when you see underwater, like whenever you see an activity being performed by a character, you imagine, at least, especially with our expectations for GTA, that you'll be able to do those activities. You're not just watching it, in a cutscene. And just to kind of piggyback off of that one, customization, which you can maybe tie into that, or maybe like another one that we're about to do in this video. But, when they do the screenshots, now we got a bunch of different characters, and those are things you can look up on your own time if you want. A lot of different characters, a lot of like personality, to all of these things. But, when it comes to the other characters, is you get several screenshots for all of them. They very much, I think, are just place and time, right? They're in a certain location, they're wearing a certain suit, so on, so on. But specifically when you see our 2 main protagonists, right? Again, you can tie really into activities because when they're playing pool or when they're boxing or when they're doing this or when they're doing that, some outfits I think are going to be very much tied to the cutscene when she's in jail. Like, I don't know if you'll be able to wear that jail attire, out in the street, but, a lot of these outfits, and you see specifically with Jason, well, actually really both of them, even like facial things that are going on, like heavy makeup or, kind of gown or, dress versus not doing that. Jason, like you see a lot of facial hair, and then other times you don't see any, right? So I just feel like that, again, like it could mean nothing. It could be very like time sensitive, or it could just be, hey, here's a bunch of different customization options that you'll be able to give your character throughout the game, and then whatever they look like at that time, that's going to be transferred over into that cutscene that they're participating in. And then the 10th and final point is details. Details all over the place. Now, really, all of these things have been details. That customization I just mentioned, you can look at facial hair, you can, like Jason has armpit hair, like all of this, but if you want to look at some things I actually think were a little bit more mind-blowing, there's some clips going around of the specific, there's a lot of driving sequences, but in one of them you could see one of the mirrors and you see those reflections. So that's freaking ray tracing going at an incredibly high speed, and it's going on just a small little, like window. So that is pretty incredible. There's the clip, it could be the same clip with the PlayStation as well, but there's like a beer can and like it's fizzing. And these are just some things, off the top of my head. The entire thing, as I mentioned in the last video I did a couple hours ago, the whole thing screams details, right? There's attention to detail, I feel like, in everything. The sand, I'm a big water freak, but that picture where there 2 people or a couple people are on the beach and they're walking, you look at their feet and the way that they're almost like kicking up the sand, and the sand is like sticking to their feet, even if they are cutscenes. Because you could say, well, Alex, they're just cutscenes. Like, number one, I feel like a lot of those things are going to make it into the game. And that's what's going to make it impressive. Because is it impressive to be in cutscenes? Yeah. I feel like this trailer, you could show somebody and they would say that's fake, that's not even a real game because it looks too good. I think that can be real and that can be true and said. But then you could also make a fair point and say, okay, well, if it's not in the base game, it doesn't matter. It's a show-off thing, right? It wouldn't matter too much. The thing that I have confidence in is a lot of that stuff is going to make it over. Will it look as good? Maybe not. But again, all of these features, all of these activities, all of these like kind of minor things, I think if you can transfer 80% of it over into gameplay, that's the revolution. People say, like, what's the big deal with GTA? That. To me, it's that. It's pushing those, because a lot of games can't do that, right? So it's those little details that, yeah, they're in cutscenes, and that's not that big of a deal. But if you can transfer it over to gameplay, there's your big deal. That's why I think it's such a big thing. So there's my 10. You let me know in the comments what you think. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.